Hey, what's up everybody? This is EJK. This is going to be a analysis VOD on innovations, TvT. This is the first game in question. It's going to be against TY. It was played about 3 weeks ago in Pro League. Since then, Innovation recently played versus Ryung, I believe, this week. So about 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks since this game. And then he recently played against CJ Bunny in another TvT game on Frost. In all three games, Innovation goes for the same style of mech, although he does open up very differently in each game. The important thing is, though, to understand the strengths of his build and how he is able to, I guess, essentially switch up his builds, his openers, to very different reactions, and also still be able to go into that kind of base of his style that we're seeing him utilize a lot in TvT. Must have a lot of confidence with it as well, and I don't think it's going to be a one-time thing. And I was really waiting for a lot more VODs just to have a couple examples so that we could piece together some basic fundamentals of Innovation's play that will always stay the same, and what makes this style a style and not just a build order. So SCP scout from both players sees that TY is going for double gas, whereas Innovation is going for a Reaper expand with a gas first. Getting the gas first allows you to start your factory slightly sooner, and in this game it plays an important role because when TY inevitably, let's just x2 this a little bit. So we're going to x2 this up until the Reaper Hellion pressure. So when TY decides to pressure Innovation, Innovation has a very specific response. And I like how his, I guess, decision making about how to deal with this changes from VOD to VOD. So the first thing here to note is that there are two Reapers in a Hellion, and 3 Marines and a Reaper on both sides. Okay, I can't. I try to make a circle and wow, I cannot click. Alright, so what is going on here is the 3 Marines are essentially buying time for this Hellion to pop out. Okay, this need to go up there. So the goal isn't to keep these, oh my gosh. The goal isn't to keep these units alive, it's to buy time and deal as much damage as possible until the Hellion comes out and you can kind of stabilize. So right off the bat, Innovation is able to target fire on the Hellion, and he's able to get the kill, which is great. And he's also able to keep the Reaper alive as well. And notice how that buys just enough time for the Hellion to come out, so that if TY chooses to go to the natural instead of the main base, he's still going to be trapped in there, and the Hellion's still going to be out to finish the pressure. So off of this, Innovation does not scan, but instead just makes 2 turrets, because the only real follow-up, the most common follow-up I would say, is for going Cloak Banshees, and anything else Innovation doesn't really have a problem against. So we see him making the eBay, and he's going to be adding 2 turrets. He does not add a 3rd turret in his production lines. That's something to note. He doesn't really need a turret there, he just needs them in the mineral lines to defend. And he's making a Cyclone too in reaction to the build opener of TY. And I think this is a very standard reaction whether you're going for bio or mech play, making a Cyclone, making a Viking, and making 2 turrets so that you're safe against Banshee play. TY, on the other hand, is going for a very fast 3rd command center so that he can kind of stabilize his crappy economy right now, down 4 SCVs. And I like what he does with the Widowmine here, because he essentially knows that Innovation is going to be having a scan saved up, and so he does. he scans. The Cyclone right-clicks onto the Banshee so it doesn't get the lock-on off, but if it was to get the lock-on off, then Innovation would be forced to back off, and he wouldn't be able to chase into the range of the Widowmine, because the Cyclone lock-on would be on the Banshee, and it would just die to the Widowmine. So the second Banshee here gets kind of easily deflected as well, and Innovation just starts up a third command center. His production buildings are just one factory with a tech lab building the siege tanks, and a reactor starport making 2 Vikings at a time. He hasn't made too many Hellions either. I believe he only made... no, he doesn't have a Raven this game, so I believe he made the... I don't actually know when he made the Hellions. Whoops. Let me just scroll back a little bit. Okay, so he made the Hellions. He made the second Hellion right before he made the Tech Lab, so he'd be able to hold against some sort of like if TY was going to do like a medevac attack or something. All right, that makes sense. And I was miscounting. I thought there were more Hellions, but he made the initial Hellion to hold off the Reaper Hellion pressure, and then he just made one more Hellion, and then a Viking and a Tech Lab on the factory. Okay. So what's going on here is both players are kind of starting to move out on the map. First TY, and then, well, I guess both players have, in no particular order. TY has taken the watchtowers. Innovation just moved on the map to clear the Widowmine. Other than that, he is just kind of staying at home until he sees this. So the importance of this scan is we see, first of all, a reactor on the starport. So we know that TY is going for heavy Viking production. Although we don't see a third command center, we can basically assume, based on this scan, that TY is going for a third command center build, because there are no additional production facilities within the range of this scan. And it'd be very odd if TY were to hide, you can't even hide a Rax there, but to hide like a Rax there to escape the scan. So based on the fact that at this time there are no production buildings going up, Innovation knows that TY has invested those minerals in a third command center. And seeing the reactor starport and the Vikings, he knows that there is a big potential for a push into the natural rocks, and kind of just to siege up, for TY to go this way, and then to siege up in that location. It's a very common spot to siege up in this map. What Innovation is going for here now is he's moving out with his army, and he continually pokes. So that was the very first poke. I'll even go back again. So if we take a look at just the minimap, we see Innovation's army moving out. The Hellions move out to this area, they poke it, they see nothing, and so they back up. It's very smart play by Innovation, and very good positional play by him as well, keeping his army close enough so that he can go into the main base if he really needs it, but also there he is poking again. He kind of sees something, I believe, and TY also goes back too, because TY only has 3 production buildings right now, so his entire army is clumped up together. If his army were to get split up, then he would pretty much lose the game, or be in a very big world of hurt. So we see here TY is now moving out, and he's going to be trying to siege up the natural area. Innovation is also moving out as well. His third poke, he's essentially waiting for TY to move out on the map like this. That's what the other 2 pokes were for. Seeing the 2 Vikings really gives it away, especially going in that direction to the right-hand area. And now Innovation's going for a base trade, and this is very smart because TY still only has those 3 production buildings right there. So he has very little reinforcements to defend this. Innovation, on the other hand, has made those defensive liberators, and he's in a much better defensive position because he split up his army better. He left his air units at home to defend, whereas TY brought his entire army. So this is a very, even though it seems like a very unusual timing, this is essentially an anti-timing. And it's just as I hear it, I'm hearing myself use the word essentially a lot. Uh, the Raven goes down, very big deal. Even if it got the PDDs off, TY would have lost that fight 100%. So although TY made a mistake of not being able to throw down those 2 PDDs, he still lost a significant chunk of his army. And it's essentially, oh my god, I have to stop using essentially. It's 2 bases versus 2 bases now, where TY's natural is gone and Innovation's 3rd base is gone. But Innovation has the superior air advantage, and this Liberator reigns supreme, and TY is going to have to call it quits. The difference between why Innovation was able to win the fight and why he was able to win the fight was because so those 2 Vikings are going over, and he has TY has 2 more Vikings on the way, as well as Innovation. So both players are making Vikings equally out of a Reactor Starport. Innovation has a Cyclone, TY has a Raven. However, Innovation, quote-unquote, is camping on top of TY's production. So 2 Vikings get taken out right there at the natural, and Innovation's continually producing Vikings. So now Innovation has a Viking lead, as well as being able to squeeze those Liberators out because of TY also made the what's it called? TY made the 2 Banshees and then the Raven before he started Viking production, whereas Innovation made 2 Vikings and then continued the Viking production and then made 2 Liberators. So if TY had those 2 Vikings from his natural in this fight, I think he might have been okay, but because he was 2 Vikings short and Innovation had 2 extra Vikings, and he also had a couple more Vikings from earlier on, that's enough to tip the favor in Innovation's favor, and that's why Innovation has so many Vikings right here. And that's pretty much GG. One thing to keep in mind is we didn't actually get to see a full look at Innovation's overall style. He basically went for a counterattack, a counter timing to what TY was going to be doing, and was able to punish TY for it. Yep. So this game is another TvT on King Sejong Station, and it's a it's another interesting game. Ryung decides to go for a 3cc build into bio. Innovation is going for a mech build again. Neither player is scouting this game. I think pretty much because it's kind of the mini mind games going on. Since this isn't ladder, you don't have to scout your opponent every single time. And Ryung is known to be a macro-based player, so Innovation feels pretty safe not having to scout against him. Innovation has made a couple slight changes to his opener as well. And this is kind of interesting because he hasn't scouted anything that Ryung has done. So we're basically assuming that Innovation is doing this build, knowing that if Ryung goes for the Reaper Hellion build that TY did, that Innovation would be able to hold it easily. And the difference in this build is instead of getting 3 Marines out, Innovation goes straight into a Reactor after his first Reaper. This might seem a bit scary, but because of the speed of the factory and the reactor, and how fast the first 2 Hellions come out, it gives Innovation enough time to just be able to have enough Hellions and be able to stabilize. So we see here, even with the Reaper gone, just with the 2 Reapers and the Hellion versus 2 Hellions, that's enough for Innovation to ward off that little aggression. So this Reaper Scout probably, well, it still probably could have gotten a Reaper Scout in if it went through the natural and then into the main base. That's a perfectly fine way of going in and getting a Scout off. But the significance of Innovation being able to see the delayed starport, although the observer highlights for us that Innovation hasn't seen the third command center, the fact that he's seen the late starport is enough to know that Ryung is going for a faster third command center. Innovation's Viking is already complete, and this is off of a Reaper expand. And Ryung went for, I believe, gas first, but then he delayed the starport and he built 2 command centers instead. So at the cost of, or at the benefits of having a slight economic lead with the faster third command center, Ryung has a smaller air count currently. Innovation's Raven is going to be done by the time Ryung's first Viking is done too, so that's how far behind Ryung is in the air lead. Seeing the Cyclone scout, or seeing the Cyclone built here, tells Innovation that Ryung isn't going to be doing some sort of fast marine tank drop immediately on. It's kind of good to know. It's also kind of good to know, just in general, if you have a Cyclone, or if you make a tank, or if you don't have a Cyclone at all and you just have Hellions, that means your opponent is most likely doing a similar build, or going to go into Mech as well. One thing that Innovation does, though, is that he takes his third and fourth gas right now before he takes the third command center. So in this game, Innovation is going to be hitting a pre-stim timing before Ryung is able to get up those extra production facilities, before he's able to get up a very high bio count, get up those scary liberators. Innovation wants to hit a timing to punish Ryung's fast third command center, and I like this a lot by him as well. Moving out on the map, just to apply pressure, and because he can, he is just kind of clearing out the path. This is clearing out the way before his actual timing hits. We see the 2 liberators on the way and the armory. Innovation's timing isn't actually going to hit until the armory is complete. However, his units are already in position for this timing attack before the armory is even complete, which is very, very good execution of this build by Innovation. And then keeping his Viking Raven fleet kind of in the middle of the map too, just in case it needs to return home. So Innovation has his army kind of perfectly split up, and then just now he's starting to bring his units there. And we see on the production tab that Ryung has 6 Vikings versus Innovation's 5. Not nearly enough with the single PDD for the Raven. Innovation pokes there, and he's really expecting to try to like catch a Viking out of position, or to just see what Ryung's army is. And the poke there tells Innovation, by seeing no units there and seeing this siege tank so far down the ramp, seeing that siege tank so far down the ramp tells Innovation that Ryung's army is like here, or it might not even be there. It could be out on the map, but basically Ryung's army is not there. So Ryung doesn't know that Innovation's army is here, but Innovation knows exactly where Ryung's army is. So a very important information of scouting going on here. And now Ryung is starting to be like, oh crap, Innovation's at my doorstep. He doesn't have a scan, he doesn't have air superiorities, so already Innovation's, I guess, execution of this attack. So he moves those 2 siege tanks slightly forward to be in range of the siege tanks. Then he adds the 2 liberators basically instantaneously as those siege tanks get ready to fire. And then the Hellbats come in from behind. A very beautiful execution. And like we see there are Hellions as well. And they become Hellbats, and basically at the same time Innovation sieges his tanks up and then sieges the liberators up. So a lot of stuff happening with Innovation's army in a very short period of time, and as expected the PDD clearly winning the air battle for Innovation and just allowing his units to reign supreme. But it's clear in this fight that Innovation just had way too much, and he was able to hit, his timing was very good so that he basically crushed Ryung here in multiple areas, and the fight wasn't even close. So what this timing is a anti kind of like barracks timing. So like we see Stim is only halfway done. The barracks have just finished up now. If we go back a little bit, the tech lab and the reactor on the barracks have just finished up now, right as innovation is starting to attack, and stim has just started as well. So this was a very strong timing window for innovation to hit, and he was able to hit the timing window because he scouted sufficiently enough for him to know that his opponent is doing this type of build. Very, very solid play by innovation. So far in games 1 and 2, we've noticed that the games have been ending quite early as well. And I think that's just a result of it being Legacy of the Void mech being different from Heart of the Swarm mech, where mech tends to lose a lot of power in the later stages of the game, I would say. I'm not entirely sure how to play the later stages of the game, but by hitting these early timings, Innovation's essentially using the... I hear myself saying essentially after I say it, not before in my head. Basically, Innovation recognizes that there are timing windows where the Terran players are playing too greedily, and using the Legacy of the Void economy, Innovation is able to power up and produce mech units at a faster pace than he was able to in Heart of the Swarm. So, this last game here is going to be between Innovation and Bunny, and it's probably one of the more interesting openers, I would say. Oops. We see Innovation end up going for a Proxy 2 racks in the middle of the map on Frost. So on a 4-player map, he's going for Proxy 2 racks. Innovation's follow-up to this Proxy 2 racks, though, is what I really like about this build. Because he essentially... This will punish... so the things going into this is that it will punish a regular Reaper expand, kind of. Frost has some good locations for the Reapers to jump up into, but more importantly, it also is kind of a gamble. That is a lot of stuff for Innovation. I think it's his birthday or something, because those are all pictures of Innovation. But oh yeah, so this punishes the other player if they scout last, or if they use a delayed scout. On a 4-player map, you're not always going to get the best scouting information, mainly because of just the luck factor of if you're scouting in the right direction or not. We see here Bunny is scouting in the wrong direction. I think Innovation sees Bunny's SCV barely, so he knows immediately where Bunny spawned, but Bunny doesn't know where Innovation spawned, because I don't think Bunny saw that. So Bunny's kind of has an odd position in his factory, so he was obviously going to be doing some shenanigans. It's very clear that Bunny was sent out to be a sniper against Innovation, and the build that Bunny prepared was... the way I can see it as it being a specific counter to Innovation's style, where he gets air superiority and then he tries to go out on the map and he tries to do these kind of mid-game timing pushes on the 2 to 3 base stage. So it's a good, I like the thought of the build, however the execution was really lacking. So the initial fight starts, and Innovation already has just, I would say, better micro than Bunny. Very clear here. These bunkers are being built mainly for vision for the high ground, but as soon as the Hellion comes out, Innovation realizes that there's no point in keeping them around, so he just cancels them. It's all good. And Bunny also cancels his command center as well, so both players are... Even though, like, this wasn't an all-in by any means from Innovation, this was just a very heavy pressure build, because Innovation's still making SCVs behind it. He didn't cut any SCVs or economy. All he did was cut a little bit of tech, and I guess the SCV mining time. Taking one of the first SCVs off gas is a significant part of your early game economy, especially when you have only like 15-ish workers. 1 out of 15 is pretty big. It's 7.5%, I believe, of your economy. Of your total economy, not even just your minerals slash gas. So the Reaper Scout here is able to see that Innovation Starport is slightly late. Bunny's Starport is going to be a lot faster, and Bunny realizes this. Innovation realizes this too, to be honest, because he invested so much in the Reapers. And Innovation just backs off because he knows that Bunny doesn't have a command center. There's no way that this is going to snowball to the point where Innovation is going to be able to break into Bunny's main base with the high ground advantage that Bunny has. So rather than try to do that, he simply just sits back and takes an expansion and plays a macro game. And because he's going into the mech style, he doesn't need those barracks early on. And he even uses this barracks here as scouting, which I really like. And so he sees that Bunny is taking his command center, except on the high ground because he has to. It's a lot more difficult to defend the command center on the low ground against Reapers because Reapers can go into the main base and the natural. Innovation's Viking pops out at a pretty perfect time, I would say, to deal with the Liberator. Only losing a couple SCVs, good reaction time. Shouldn't lose a lot of SCVs, to be honest. Just a lot of mining time. Innovation's besides the lost mining time, Innovation's still in a good spot because his natural is done and it's on location as well, so he's going to quickly catch up in whatever mining time he lost. And he's going to have the second mule faster as well. It's going to give him a significant increase in economy. What this attack, this little timing Innovation is doing here is he wants to know, I guess, he wants to see what kind of units that Bunny has, and he sees that. So this is very smart of him. This might seem a bit foolish, but to explain what's going on, Innovation purposefully goes around into the range over here, so that if there was potentially a cyclone on the high ground, it would lock onto a unit, and it locks onto a Reaper. So Innovation knows that there's a cyclone on the high ground, and because he knows the location of the cyclone, he kind of is trying to be very fancy with his play and goes onto the high ground, immediately starts to target the cyclone. He just really wants the cyclone. Not able to get it though, but able to weaken it, which is good. And that kind of just delays the natural of Bunny even further. Bunny landing the Viking, very questionable decision on his part. And Innovation just showing that he's outclassing Bunny, killing both the Cyclone and the Viking. It hurts a lot, and only losing a couple Reapers. I guess he lost like 5 Reapers and maybe 1 Hellion. Not worth it for Bunny at all. So this was Bunny's original sniper build, I believe, to go for the Cyclone upgrade. This was something he was planning on doing regardless of how Innovation opened up, and I can see it being very strong, the idea behind it, in dealing with Innovation. And also a very smart choice as well to try to pick a mech versus mech game so that Bunny would be able to practice a lot more mech versus mech compared to Innovation, who might be practicing more against bio than he is against mech. Again, Innovation getting another Cyclone. Very sloppy micro on Bunny's part. We see the Cyclones are lined up in a straight line, so the Hellions are able to get 1 good shot, 2 good shots off, and really damaging that second Cyclone as well, along with killing that first Cyclone. If Bunny had his units more in a straight line, like if the Cyclones are firing like this and your units are like this, the Hellions are going to deal a lot less damage. So the scan reveals that this is going to be a Cyclone build. There really isn't any question of whether it's Blue Flame or not, because of the double tech labs on the factories. And one thing we notice here also is that Innovation isn't going for a fast third command center again. So apart from the game he played versus TY where he went for a faster third command center, he's choosing not to go for a third command center, and he's instead choosing to do these 2 base pushes with his mech play. The 4 Cyclones being out on the map right now, it's pretty nice to be able to get the snipe on the barracks. It's kind of annoying for Innovation. Not the biggest deal in the world, though. And he's already Innovation already knows what Bunny is doing, so there's no need to hide the Cyclones either. Bunny checks for the third base. He doesn't see it. What also is going on here, I'm not entirely sure, because he moves like 2 of his Cyclones back, and then he just leaves 3 Cyclones there. So maybe it's just either a mistake or he was waiting to pick something off. We see Innovation going around the watchtower. He was scouted by, I believe there was a Marine or some unit there. Just really poor play by Bunny, actually, just in general. I'm not really sure why those 2 Cyclones would be there alone, and then the Vikings would be in the natural as well. And then these Cyclones are completely out of position as well. And Bunny's not kiting against the tanks, so taking a lot of damage against the... so, like, the proper micro with Cyclones is that you lock on and then you get away from the other units as fast as possible so you don't take additional damage. So Bunny does lock on to these 2 tanks here, but then he takes additional tank shots, and that really weakens his Cyclones up, so he's not able to really do anything else with the Cyclones. He's basically forced to back up because they're all very red in health right now. We don't see that, but they're all probably less than like half HP at this moment. And we see Innovation just slowly marching on. He's done so much damage at this point, and the Mule's there just to add insult to injury because he knows that Bunny... He knows that he's a much better player than Bunny. He's been winning every single micro engagement. So he's like, it's okay to overextend like this. He still did a lot of damage anyways. Now this is where we X2 the game. So, yeah, I guess this pretty much brings an end to the video because this game is essentially over. Basically, we see Innovation doing TvT Mech in every game so far. He believes it's good. He believes that the build that he's doing the same style build every game, where he's going for just like these Liberator timings and just air superiority. And besides the first game against TY where he added the 3rd CC, his 3rd CC has been kind of slower in general throughout all of the games. So I think really that Innovation really likes doing these mid-game timings and ending the game as early as possible. There's not a lot of room for error with these very sharp timings that Innovation is doing, and he's just hitting them so perfectly that it's either like he either gets a small advantage that he needs and he's able to finish the game, or he's able to just he's just able to take advantage of the smallest things possible, I guess. And like right here, so he's just moving past the Liberators. Siege tanks are slower than Liberators sieging up. And what happens here is Bunny sieges up again, and he very smartly splits his tanks and Hellbats apart, and then immediately his tanks go over here. They're still outside of the Liberator range, but they're still in range of the buildings of Bunny so that they're doing additional damage. I thought that was just such a good move on Innovation's part, just instantly moving there after moving out of the Liberator fire range. And then just kind of doing more damage, killing units very cost efficiently, because tanks deal a lot more damage one-on-one against or compared to Cyclones. With Cyclones, you gotta kind of run away. That's the only way that they're good, is if you hit and run. But yeah, that pretty much brings an end to this video. Conclusion: Innovation is really liking the mech play style in TvT right now, and will we see him continue to do it, and how will his macro games look? I think that's the biggest thing to look forward in the upcoming weeks as we see him play in more Pro League, hopefully. Cheers and good night and good games, everybody.